music, motivation, and mindset show. I've been planning this show out for probably about 2 years now. But I finally got off my butt and did it. So today, it should be interesting. I've never live streamed before, and especially not in my kitchen. But I have done some stuff, so we'll get right to it. I want to bring on our guest right now because they're very pivotal to today's discussion about DJs, how we've dealt with COVID over the last 9 months, 10 months, and, how we can motivate people to continue to practice their craft, not get down into situations where everyone's losing their jobs and already has. But all right, so let's just get started. I'm going to bring on first from Houston, Texas. It's Mr. DJ Riddler. What's up,
Hey,
Rich?
John. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And then we have also from Pittsburgh, PA, TJ Hess.
Hey guys. Hey John.
What's going on?
Hey
How are
Rich. Good. How you?
you? Good.
Happy Monday.
That's right. It's the holiday season. You got to be jolly, right?
I'm trying to. Yeah, we're trying for jolly.
I hear you.
We'll shoot for Monday. Try for jolly.
We'll do the best we can, as they say. Cool. So I want to talk about how this whole pandemic has affected our industry. You guys are both DJs. You've been in clubs for years, and with the blink of an eye, everything was just gone. So let's go back to March, because that's about when it started to really shut down across the country. Where were you guys? What were you, how was your life then? You were out in the clubs how many times a week doing your thing?
Yeah, for myself, I was coming from, when I was in Houston, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo is like one of the biggest events. It's a month-long event where they have concerts pretty much every day for the entire month of March. And before the actual rodeo starts, they do what's called the Rodeo Cook-Off. And it's an event that I've been doing for the last 7 years. And I had just finished doing that event and preparing for rodeo season, working. I was working at several nightclubs, basically 4 nights a week. And all of a sudden, when this all happened in March, they basically locked us all down in March. I think it was St. Patty's Day. This is what I remember.
Yeah.
That was like the last weekend. And of course, that's a big weekend for a DJ. And we basically lost everything. Lost all of the corporate gigs, lost all of the DJ gigs, the club gigs. And on top of that, radio. I do mix shows. Fortunately, my syndicated mix show wasn't really affected, but everyone from across the country, TJ, I know you could talk more about that, but and then also too, as a producer, not just, I was actually working on several projects, several remix projects that were slated for, to be worked to the Billboard club chart, and they froze that chart. So once that chart was frozen, all of the remix projects were frozen too, because why are we going to have these remix projects when there's no chart to work to? So it was losing everything all at once, like literally, like
It was a light switch.
Monday after St. Patty's Day.
Yeah.
That was it.
Rich, it's interesting. One of the things that, you and I have been friends for a while, John, we've been friends for a long time. We kind of always take in our feedback from our fellow peers. And one of the feedbacks I think I always kept with me was diversify when you can. If you want to stay in this gig of being a DJ, being a radio DJ, being a club DJ, being a host, being part of corporate sponsors or being part of corporate parties. And I took that to heart a long time ago. I know we've all been doing this more than 2 decades now. One of the things I knew was I used to try to preach to other DJs was you have to make sure you don't have all your eggs in one basket. And I was very happy with the point where I was in my career where I had a little bit of this, a little bit of that. If one went down, There were 4 others to support it. If 2 went down, there were 3 others to support. And I mean, financially, we work. This is a love. It's not just a job for all of us. I mean, I always go back to AM saying, do what you love and find someone to pay for you. That quote that he lived by, and I kind of do the same thing. You never in a million years think that everything you're doing is going to literally evaporate within a 24-hour period. And that's exactly what happened to me. Exactly what Rich said. I had a syndicated country show. My main job here at WBZ Pittsburgh was frozen. I was furloughed. I luckily have my job still, which is something that a lot of people can't say. I haven't worked yet, but it's coming back 10 months later. I do work for the Pittsburgh Steelers, was something else. And hey, there's going to be no fans this year. We don't need you. Work for the casino. Casinos are closing. We're all in lockdown. So it was, as Rich said, in a matter of a blink of an eye, everything was gone. And I never thought that would happen. I remember feeling that way when I was only working clubs. Up clubs closed. What are you going to do? Find another club, but that feeling was, I don't ever want to have that feeling again of being helpless, have nothing there. And I worked my butt off to diversify myself, and to a point where, hey, if something goes down, there's other things to fill the slack. So there was that point I think it was March 18th, 19th, 20th, somewhere around there, getting that phone call from my boss. Hey, we got to find a way to diversify your hours to, hey, there's no more hours. So that was a double whammy. And then got another phone call from none of our partners. Hey, the show's done. Then you get a call from, another employer. Hey, we don't need you right now. And it was an avalanche. Absolutely was an avalanche. And okay, so it was like, okay, what do we do? There's other people that are going to feel like I do. First thing we needed to do was, find, okay, what's going to help us out? How do we get unemployment? How do we start? And I think I needed them automatically to still feel like I was doing something productive, important, and to help out my fellow DJs and friends and whoever who might not have the assets at their disposal to go ahead. Okay, how do I? And it was something. Okay, immediately, because I knew what I went through and before with depression or feeling that helplessness or feeling like I don't know what to do. Took all that energy I had within a day and started rolling it into, okay, let's get on this now. This is not going to be something that's going to last 14 days to stop the spread. I knew that right off the bat. I think we all did. And it was okay, now what do we do? How do we roll into, how do we start to prepare for, now it's been 10 months. And I think that goes on to a different part of what we're going to talk about later. So.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, but you definitely are one to take action. I've also seen people who, and I guess it's the paralyzation of fear that just couldn't do anything. And they were just kind of struggling and sitting there and didn't know what to do, didn't know where to turn to. But I think that's why, when you create groups and stuff, people like you can help out, and it's an amazing thing for everybody.
Well, I think all 3 of us can say we've been there, not like this. I mean, I have different points in my life. I'm 46 years old. I've been doing clubs since I was 19. I started getting into DJing, and there was different points I can go back to my own personal timeline and go, okay, I know what I did there. I lost half my head of hair here, almost put myself into the hospital here. I mean, seriously dead. Yeah. And I started having flashbacks to those moments. I lost my job at Hot Mix in 2001 across in Arizona, and had no idea what I was going to do next. I was only out there for the job. How do I get back to Pennsylvania? How do I at least get back home and reset with $45 in my pocket and a car I just leased, like those kind of feelings. And so I was taking a lot of that when I sat down on March 21st and went, I think that's the day, okay, what do we do next? And I got on the phone with Rich. I was lucky that Rich and I've been friends with Rich for a long time, since the AOL days. I remember hitting Rich up on Instant Messenger. He was always available when I would sit there because I was a fan. I loved what he was doing. I wanted to strive to be what he was doing. And ironically, we started really strumming up our relationship via the phone or email, whatever. Rich was always available. And I hit him up with a simple question. And I said, hey, I'm feeling like this. and Rich kind of knew my past a little bit too, and so I think it's hard to talk to other people, John, in your own city about what you're going through, because there's not too many people like me, you, Rich, down the street here in Pittsburgh.
Right.
There are one of me, one of Rich, one of you, one of other guys who do what we do in other cities. And I really thank God for technology and knowing, hey, I can reach out to Rich because I think he'll know exactly how I'm feeling, because he has kind of the same job that I do or did, or at one point was all of it, above. And I reached out to him and I said, listen, I feel like shit right now. I don't want to go down this hole of depression that I think is going to start happening. Do you think it would be something that you'd be interested in to maybe get together and have a group to talk about these kind of things, and lean on each other a little bit and maybe share resources in regards to how do we start filing for unemployment? What's there? What can we do? Is there a funding? Is it whatever? What do we need to start doing immediately? It wasn't even like, hey, let's wait 2 weeks and start doing. I mean, I felt like we needed to do it immediately because I knew what I went through personally in the past where situations like this arose. And there have been different times where this has happened, and where clubs were shutting, weren't as 9/11, we went after that. I think after 9/11, which clubs were shut down for a couple of months. It was a ramp up period after that. I mean, during the 2008 economic, we had that time in 2008 or 2000. There's different times where I know the economy wasn't where it was, where it was brimming coming into 2020. This was going to be probably my biggest year, financially or event wise or just relationship connections. I mean, I was really looking forward to 2020, even in the outskirts or beginning of February, it even still looked good. But then, I mean, man, like I said, a light switch. That's all you can describe it was. Everything's on and now everything's off. So.
Yeah, Rich, when you got that call, what were you thinking?
Disbelief. Wait, which call?
When TJ called you and said, "Hey, we really need to do something," and
I agreed. First of all, before he called, I was just in disbelief with everything. I was just in completely just, whoa. It's like getting hit with a baseball bat behind you, right? So when he called, I was totally on board. I was like, yeah, absolutely. We got to do this. I mean, I was feeling probably the same way. And if I'm feeling this way and TJ's feeling this way, there's definitely other people feeling this way. And sure enough, yeah. I mean, our first call, I think, we had a good group, we still do. We have a great group of guys and, same guys that have been in it since we first started. So that feeling, it definitely resonated with all of us.
And after I talked to Rich, I sat down and I thought the first person I thought about maybe pulling these troops together was you, John. And, I'm pretty emotional all the time. I wear my feelings on my sleeve. And it's just the way I am. I have thought we need to have somebody who is very mild-mannered. Most of the, you know what I mean? Like someone who can calm the waters and maybe calm how I'm feeling and bring up people who could be feeling depressed more than I was. And I said to Rich, I said, what if we call John Parker and say, hey, we got this idea. Would you host it? Because I don't think I had personally the energy to do it. I was still going through all these issues in my head.
Sure,
and obviously I was in no, I mean, I've got a 5-year-old kid, I've got my girlfriend here, she's a school teacher. She was going through her own issues now with her, and the whole dynamic of employment just changed in a matter of a day.
Oh yeah.
With that. So it was a smart move, and Rich totally agreed. And I said, I think I called you, John, the same day and said, hey, we got an idea. This is how I'm feeling. This is how Rich is feeling. We have a feeling there's other people and other DJs around the country who might be feeling the same way, might not be able to cope with it, and probably need a little bit of structure and support. And that, because that loneliness comes on real quick.
Oh yeah.
Real quick.
Yeah, no, I've lost jobs over, my career, and you sit there, and while you were proactive, I just sat there and was like, what do I do? And so you have that desperation over your head, and it's like when you deal with people in a group, that dynamic actually helps because you can bounce questions off of people, especially the one you've known, for a long time.
Absolutely.
I think in the beginning we did kind of keep it small, but we've kind of expanded since then. But yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, and it was, I didn't want it to have anything to do with music at one point at the beginning of this. This had nothing to do with anything but humanity. It had to
Right.
do with, okay, DJing is a lonely island on a singular planet in a one solar system. This is it. Everyone is their own person, their own brand, their own marketing tool, their own financer. They're most of the time their own banker. They're their own, their own promoter. And it was like, okay, if they're not diversified, if these people only have one gig, and that's gone, I didn't want to see any one of my friends, colleagues go down the same kind of rabbit hole I did of depression, of what to do next. And then pulling yourself off that rug, that Rocky scene in Rocky Balboa where he says to his kid, it's not how hard you get hit, it's how hard you get hit and get yourself back up. Literally, that's what he's talking about is this pandemic for everybody in any job, in any career. But part of the best part about being in something for so long is you start to, build connections. You have that Rolodex, if the kids still know what a Rolodex is, on your desk, and you roll through it and you're like, I'm going to call Rich to see how he's feeling. And literally it was Rich and you. I said, if Rich was like, maybe people need to deal with this in their own way, I would have been, okay, you're right. Maybe it's just me, but he kind of immediately agreed. Yeah, I think this is something we need to do. And, what we're talking about is obviously we turned into called the Mix Show Roundtable, which I'm sure you can explain that a little bit better of how we got into that. So, but yeah.
Yeah, what we did was we decided when TJ and Rich had called me, it was like, all right, so let's create a community where we can do something. And TJ had mentioned Zoom, and I was like, what? I had no clue what that was.
That's right. Yeah.
I took that night to go in and kind of play around and figure it out a little bit.
Yeah.
And, we decided to go that route. And I remember early on, they were giving away a free hour that you could use. And
that went by fast.
It went real fast.
I think we were 2 or 3 weeks in when all of a sudden we had a guest on and we went past the hour, not even realizing it. And it's popping up on my screen. You have to pay for this now. And I was like, what? And so I'm going to get my credit card and I come back and everyone's gone. And it just totally kicked us all off.
I forgot about that. The guest was halfway through their spiel and
I think, wasn't the guest like Allie Brooke?
It was Allie Brooke, yeah. Poor Allie Brooke. But it was like, she came back later though, right? Another week.
Yeah. So that was fun.
Learning pains and growing pains, right?
That's what it is, and you've got to make that jump and make that motion and get things started. And I think what's come out of this is it has been a safe haven for the Mix Show DJ community, because if I know you or Rich knows you or TJ knows you or, you're all invited usually. It's
absolutely.
not many people we would say no to.
But like I said, it wasn't a specific music. It had nothing really to do with music, but the influence was how I was just taking it on. I know how I felt. Rich knew how he felt. You obviously knew, John, how we were feeling. Mm-hmm. You had your own feelings about it, and we could have all just said, it's too early. We need to wait a while or see. But I think it was being that proactive. I know it helped me tremendously. Being that proactive as quickly as we did in March, to just, hey, let's get some troops together. And I think you put a survey out to see what was the best time for people.
Yep.
And they were like Tuesdays. So we're like, okay, Tuesdays is good because any day is good. And I'm like, what time? 7 o'clock was, yeah. Everybody can fit it in for some reason. Yeah.
Every day is a Tuesday.
Every day is a Tuesday.
Yeah, that's the thing is like I kind of nicknamed our Tuesday. I like to use the hashtag or nickname it Tuesday Zooms Day.
Yeah, right.
Because that's what I look forward to every Tuesday. Yeah. I look forward to Zooming on Tuesday with all of you guys.
So the first week or two, we just kind of huddled up around our campfire. We all figured out what Zoom was, and now we all have degrees in Zoom now and everything else. But it was interesting that first week, John, and it was weird. I said I walked into the Zoom literally and kind of froze and didn't know how to be a host. I forgot how to speak. Like I just was like in shambles. I know I was just a literal mess, and then seeing And I have a degree in communication. That's when I graduated from Slippery Rock. I was always fascinated with group dynamics, small group communication. I always believed, though, seeing is believing. And I think I mentioned this to you and Rich early. We could all have like a phone call, but you never know what's going on in someone's background. You don't know if something is disheveled. You don't know if, I mean, there's times, I came in, we all checked in. Hey, TJ, how do you feel? Or hey, Rich, how you doing? You don't look too good. We had to check on not only our mental health, physical health, but in order to do that was being able to see each other in Zoom. And I thought that was a big component of this call, is not only to get together, but to make sure, hey, we can physically see, hey, you look like you haven't showered or shaved, or like what else is going on.
Right.
Because mental health to me is, I think that was the number one thing we all needed to lean on each other for, our mental health before everything else right now. Because that's something you don't want to go down and very hard to come back from. And that was one thing I really appreciated with Zoom.
Yeah. And I know that a few guys on the call have actually called other guys and said, hey, you need help or whatever, let me know. And, off the call on the side, because that's important too. I think it solidified a lot of, relationships and it grew some. Like, well, I know some of the guys on the call, I didn't know them really as well as I do now. Yeah. Which, helps. So that's really cool.
Absolutely.
So I see Chris Kopech's actually in the chat there.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah. So he's got a great story that I was going to bring up later about how he kind of pivoted, what was going on.
Chris did something. Chris is a DJ I've met through DJ Second Nature. Brett and I have been friends for probably about 20 years. And Chris Kopech was the DJ is the DJ for Under Armour, which is located in Baltimore, and also for this football team. I forget what they're called again. It's the Ravens. Is that what they're called?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like I hadn't heard of them. I supposedly they're in the NFL. I don't know. No, anyways, Chris, his family, talking about doing something very, very quickly. They were started like everybody else started doing, was jumping online and streaming to Facebook. Music doesn't stop, and a lot of DJs say, well, if I can't be in a club, I'm going to take this on Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, Sundays, whenever, and start doing what music does, which is heal and make you forget. And Chris went on, and I don't know, we had the discussion about how Facebook picked up his particular stream and was in his basement with his kids, just playing his music, playing, open formats, some great party hits, something that makes everyone feel good, want to dance. I think he said in 24 hours, he went back and looked, and it had several million views. He just like turned the switch on and started streaming. And I can't see Chris's comments, so you could probably tell us if it was any different with that. But it was amazing. He just started something in his basement with streaming that turned into its own story. We were talking about the Bee Gees documentary before we went on live, and the Chris Kopech documentary that comes out on HBO Max is going to be one to watch. I guarantee you that. But yeah, I don't know how far you want to go into Chris's story, but it was.
Well, I will, but Chris wants to remind you that it's the Ravens.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. Forgot about that team.
So, yeah, Chris actually raised millions of dollars for charity. I mean, he had a run there for, however many weeks that was.
Still doing.
Is he still?
Yeah.
But the big story, I mean, he's got national news on it, national press. Yeah. But yeah, within like a week, he raised $1 million for charity. It was insane. One of the first live stream DJs.
His story went around the globe. It really did. He was on every single, except Ellen. And I'm still upset we both couldn't get him on Ellen. But he was on every single network. I mean, this couldn't happen to a greater person, a greater family. And I know he's a Ravens guy, but I'm still saying it. But that was, I just needed to talk to other people that were doing this. And then you start seeing what everybody else started evolving and doing for themselves. And we just happened to be friends, but it was like, so much negative and so much bad has happened. But to see the good that has come out of this too, through music, through DJing. I mean, I've been emotional. It's like every day you're crying and then you're happy and you're crying or you're excited for someone. And it's insane. I think we all aged probably 7 years. We aged like dogs this year, but yeah, it was interesting. And of course, Chris was one of our early guests in our Mix Show
Yes.
Roundtable on Tuesdays, which was awesome. To show other DJs, look at what Chris just did by doing what we all love to do, playing music for people through this new medium of Facebook. I know people were streaming beforehand. Rich, you were streaming, with it wasn't. We never thought it was going to be the predominant way to do what we do. Through Facebook and Instagram Live and Twitch and everything else that we can now to stream, Periscope and Twitter. But yeah, it was what Chris did, and every day was something, another headline. And I'm like, this guy's DJing. The dude is playing music for people, and look what it's doing around the world during this pandemic when everything else was shut down and negative. So, yeah, it is an amazing story. You got to have him on as a guest one of these days, John.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, Rich is definitely one of the first people I ever saw live stream, and that was many years ago. When he used to bring his setup into the club and actually try to live stream. We could never watch it because it was always breaking up and stuff. But
that's right. Yeah.
I mean, going back to Justin TV, that was what.
That's right, Justin TV. Yeah.
That's actually what Twitch became. I guess Twitch bought Justin TV, but yeah, I was live streaming from the clubs 10 years ago. But yes, like John said, the internet was not very kind.
No, it was not.
I told you, Rich, it was funny back in 97. I remember when B94, we had a webcam. It was like a link, and webcam was a script that showed you one frame every minute in black and white of like the studio. And we're like, wow, look at this. We can see the magic one frame at a time in black and white,
It was a bad security camera. That's what it was.
But yeah, and then now it's like streaming app. It's just like, doing laundry now, streaming. It's amazing.
Yeah, and you were actually, TJ, one of the guys who really got in depth with it. I remember you talking about OBS, and I didn't know what that really was. And, but you don't really live stream, do you, at this point?
It was back in April, one of my dearest friends, DJ PDC here in Pittsburgh, was one who decided on Friday nights. We locally here in Pittsburgh, a lot of guys are doing it. DJ Climax is one of my friends too. One of my DJs I work with on Saturday nights at Foxtail, my residency here in Pittsburgh, hosting, who is still doing it. And just Friday night, we did a Foxtail, or he did, not we did. He did a Foxtail stream and raised all the money. Proceeds went to the bar service the wild service girls and bartenders of Foxtail. So I think we found a part where we're trying to support each other here in Pittsburgh, and found one or two guys who are doing it the best, or had the setup, and try to push for that stream. When at the beginning, everyone was doing their own thing and doing multiple things, and there's some guys here locally who have found some incredible success with streaming, financially. And there's guys who are doing it to make themselves feel better, and there's guys who are doing it to entertain the masses. Everyone's found a new way an avenue of using and utilizing streaming to the best of their abilities and whatever their end game is. I jumped on early as a tech nut with Petey, and we figured out a way to bring multiple DJs from our houses into one stream. And we thought, man, look at this. This is cool. So Petey, would start it off and hosted it and set everything up, and we would figure out using YouTube and OBS and using what am I missing here? Zoom, to do all three at the same time. And we had like a green room where a bunch of us would sit around and talk to each other while PD was streaming, or PD was DJing, or somebody else was, and then pulling us in and doing split screens via Zoom. We just were going by what the technology we kind of always dabbled in, because we're just tech nuts. I think it's interesting. Like, I've had a home studio for a decade. This mic, right here.
Right.
I produce, mix, and host my own show here in Pittsburgh on WBZZ, and I utilize everything you see here in this room. I don't leave the house. I FTP all of my shows up to the studio, and it dumps into, at that time it was Audio Vault, now it's Wide Orbit, and the show runs itself. It's all automated. I mean, I just do it all from here. So when the pandemic hit, nothing really changed for me work wise, where, I could still do a show right here from my office.
Right.
Where a lot of people were just for the first times now, like, hey, I gotta do. I know guys at work doing it from their closet. I think, John, you're doing this from your kitchen, right?
Yeah, my kitchen today.
Yeah, I mean, you find your happy place to do this with some good acoustics. But this is life, and I don't know if it's ever going to change much after the pandemic is over. I think a lot of people have found out that this is possible. I mean, webcams were triple the price if you could find them. Computer parts now are triple than they were when I built this computer next to me 2 years ago. Like, it would cost you 3 times as more. I think a lot of people are taking tech and realizing this is going to be the norm now, where, they're home if they want to keep doing this and keep streaming. And I think a lot of people also want to stream and want to polish their presentations. And so they're spending the money they couldn't spend on vacations and other things that into what they want to do. And it's cool to see that DJs are going to find a way. People are resilient. We're still going to get that music out. We're still going to get our craft out, and they will figure a way to do it, by any means possible.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And then, Rich, you've had an interesting story because you have your son now who's DJing, and you're doing it with him, and sometimes I guess he does it alone. So how's that been going?
Yeah, it's actually it's been great. I mean, what started out really just as an activity that I wanted to do with Renner. Renner at the time was 10 years old, and he wanted to kind of take a stab at it. And I said, all right, let's try it. Let's give it a shot. So, kind of taught him more basics. And then I said, are you ready to live stream? We're going to go live. He's like, yeah, let's go. So we started live streaming. And in the beginning, actually, when we started live streaming, he got his first DJ gig. Jim out in North Carolina basically sent me a private message and wanted Renner and myself to do a private Zoom party for his dance gymnastic school in North Carolina. And we were like, oh, wow, this is actually a thing. So we were pretty excited about that. And then that just kind of continued on. And then a couple of weeks later, I got a message from Xfinity, Comcast Xfinity. They saw our live streams and wanted to do a virtual live stream with Xfinity. And we ended up doing a couple of online streams with Xfinity. So it was cool to get a sponsorship. And this was not something that we were, setting out to be streamers. We were just doing this as an exercise to just kind of do an activity together, which he's right here, by the way.
Renner! There he is, DJ Renner!
Yes.
And it's funny because we actually took a little break about maybe 3 weeks ago. Yeah. He had school work to do. I was starting a new job, but we did a live stream this Saturday, and I was amazed, because this kid has obviously been practicing behind my back because
literally
when he was
is he doing his schoolwork?
He was, because he had a really great set on Saturday night. I was really and actually after he spun for an hour, and then I came on afterwards, and he has his own little fan base now of he has his own
I
fans.
follow him.
So
there he is.
So let me ask you this, Renner, come on camera. So what do you like better? Do you like better DJing or do you like playing golf? Because I know you're one heck of a golf player.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, we only ask hard questions here.
That's it.
He actually just came from the golf course.
Did he?
Yeah, it's funny. When we were on Saturday night, somebody in the comments said, "I feel like I'm watching Tiger Woods and Charlie Woods right now." The DJing. So
there you
That's
go.
funny. That's funny.
But it's been great having Renner show interest in not just DJing but even live streaming. So that's one of the great things that happened in 2020 for myself.
Absolutely.
100%.
He actually he made his first track this year too.
I know.
Yeah, I taught him some basics with Ableton. What was the name of your record?
Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Yep.
So that was another positive thing too. So it was great.
And you live streamed actually him making the record, which was kind of cool.
Yes. And he actually, the vocal sample, that's his voice that he recorded. So that was a lot of fun.
No, that's great. That's
awesome.
Again, one of the fantastic stories that can come out of, where we've been, and as much as it's been troubling, there's been positives. We can turn things into better things. We've had Chris with his raising money for everyone. We've had, Rich being able to spend more time with his, family and, bring Renner into DJing a little bit and making music, which is a passion for both, I'm sure now. So that's really cool. TJ, you going to get back to any live streaming, or are you just going to just kind of whatever?
It's, I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I just, I enjoy watching everybody else do it. I had fun doing. I only did it a couple times, back in April.
Mm-hmm.
I just really can't. I have a problem doing it without people. I have an issue where I'm so used to seeing reaction and being there, and that whole not being on stage next to mostly nowadays. I'm hosting more things than. I'm DJing private events and the stuff we have for our cluster, the radio stations, but that energy of just hosting and being on stage with guys and being part of a group and seeing interactions with fans and people on the dance floor, man, do I miss that.
Right.
And I never really took it for granted. I used to wake up and every Monday and say, I'm still in this. It would be like when Monday I'd come over, I'd sit right here at this desk. I'd go like this. Still doing this. Can't believe it's still on. Got another week of doing this.
Yeah.
Because I always knew it's so fragile. It could be gone in a second. Didn't literally think it was going to be gone in a second. And it literally happened that way. It was like I said, and it was like, wow. And it seemed like I always mentally prepared for an apocalyptic thing to happen. It's just terrible to think that way. But this industry, you just kind of get to the point where like something could possibly change. I don't know what overnight, where I am not needed anymore. Johnny Hartwell was someone who I always took to heart. It was a DJ I worked with for a long time. He's a DJ here in Pittsburgh on another station who said to me when I was trying to get into radio as a intern into being a part-timer, he goes, TJ, find something in this building, meaning the studio, that no one else is doing and figure out how to way to do it and have them pay you for it. And I took that to heart too. It was like, okay, well, there's no one really, DJing or no one. Hey, these events would be better if you had a DJ at them, or, you don't need a syndicated mix show. You got me. Let's do it locally. Let's locally farm this thing, right. And grow that kind of thing. And that's something that was a seed that grew out of literally again better people's advice, people being there that I leaned on. Growing up through this thing and trying to make my way in the industry. And again, getting back to when the pandemic hit, it was like, okay, it's my time to be someone to be leaned on. I've been through that. Of course, I'm going to go through my own mental breakdowns here at different levels too. But still, hey, I've been through something like this. Let's see if there's other people who haven't, who are a lot younger than I am, or maybe have only started doing radio, and let's get something positive as well out of this together and heal out of this together. So
right, absolutely. Turning to music real quick, Rich, have you found that because you are a producer, remixer, an artist, have you found that the time you have now you can use creatively, or do you still miss being in the club, getting that inspiration from there and feeding off that into your productions?
Pre-pandemic, I always use the club as a gauge of the work that I do, because I'll work onto something and then I'll play it in the club. I'll make my tweaks from it you know, seeing not just the reaction from the people in the crowd, but also hearing it in a club system. But then when the pandemic happened, obviously we didn't have the clubs anymore. But then when they started reopening, I found that it wasn't the same. It just wasn't the same because, first of all, you know, the clubs here in Texas or in Houston, they were no longer clubs. They are now restaurants.
Right.
So there was no dance floor. So they would put sections on the dance floor. And now you have people at tables instead of people on a dance floor. So they're not really dancing. They're just standing or, you know, whatever.
Nodding their heads a lot.
Nodding their heads at, or, you know, just, it's a very weird vibe. I mean, in the beginning, I think people didn't know how to react inside the club.
Right.
They were just there and everyone's kind of looking around at each other. Obviously, after a couple of drinks, then that goes out the window. But even then, it's still, it's just not the same energy that it was pre-COVID. So from a producer standpoint, for me, I wasn't getting the same kind of thing. But then that also changed the way I also was producing music too. And I think what I've learned through our Tuesday calls, you know, when we have all these different artists, they all said the same thing. Like, you know, since there's no dance floor, there's no need to make club bangers anymore. No, you know, high energy tracks. So everything's kind of, you know, mellow, down tempo, vibey, right? Everyone's kind of doing these vibey records. So from a production standpoint too, it was a different approach for me now also, because now I'm not worrying so much about a dance floor, but now worrying about, like, sonically, like, what kind of vibe am I going to give it now that's going to translate not just over streaming, but, you know, also just translating in a more subdued kind of laid back vibe, you know. So it's definitely changed the way I've produced records this year. And you would think that with all this time that it would, you know, everybody, I mean, I was the same way when the pandemic started. I was like, okay, I'm just going to go in the studio. I'm going to start just writing music, creating tracks. But no, it doesn't. It doesn't work out that way. There were literally weeks where I did not even turn on my my studio stuff.
Is that because of distractions around, or is it because you just weren't motivated to kind of get in there and work it out?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. I would say, like, the first 2 months I was pretty motivated. I was like, okay, because I was already in the mindset, because at that time I was already working on some original music and I had some remix projects lined up. And when those were taken away from me, like I said earlier, I was still in studio creation mode, right? That's when I got Renner involved and I started teaching him how to, you know, create some music. And that kind of kept me going for like maybe 2-3 months. Then the roller coaster of emotions that we all have gone through during this whole pandemic started to kick in. And Tuesday calls are motivating, but then Thursday comes, then it's just like, then the weekend comes, it's even more depressing because you're not DJing, you're not playing in front of the people that you're normally used to. And so I was just like, okay. And I would go there, you know, like I said, there would be some days, sometimes weeks, where I didn't touch anything. And I'll be honest, like, I was live streaming I went 30 weeks straight doing maybe at least three live streams a week for 30 weeks straight, right? But after 30 weeks, I got into a little funk, and I just stopped live streaming. I stopped live streaming for like, then I started doing it like maybe every other week, maybe 2-week break, go on for a week, take 2 weeks break, go on another week, another break. I mean, I just started being a little inconsistent, and a part of that was because of just this roller coaster of emotions that I've been going through myself, and the creativity, kind of went away also. But I could say now I've become, I don't know what it is. It just kind of turned on in the last 2 weeks. So last 2 weeks I started getting my mojo back, I guess, so to speak. And, now I'm, I just started writing again, finished a remix, and I was actually working on one last night, working on one, and I went on live, and saw a couple people out there. Q came through, you came through, John Parker, and so I'm feeling the creativity back, and also the live streaming is back again. Not also probably too because I just do have to try to do many things, and that's what I was trying to do, because not only was I trying to create all these different things from music to radio mix shows, but I actually went back to school this summer. Mm-hmm. So I decided, I got to figure something else out maybe as like a backup. This was like plan D. I have plan A, plan B, plan C. Now I need plan D. So my plan D was to go back to college and try to learn a new skill. And so that also played a big part of things. But that whole experience too was interesting because obviously everything was all virtual, right? Including all the colleges were all virtual.
Right.
And I think it actually helped me better than, say, going to an actual classroom, because it taught me new skills that I didn't have before. In the beginning, when I signed up for these courses, I was going back to my days of college 20 years ago and trying to study the way I did 20 years ago, and realized real quick
it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. And two, you don't need to study like that anymore. There's so many tools at your disposal now than from 20 years ago. And once I said, okay, I know I don't have to handwrite these notes anymore. I could just take screenshots.
I could press record.
I could just take screenshots, and there was, because I literally would take paper and I would manually write down notes in my handwriting, which, by the way, I haven't handwritten in forever.
Yes.
You're like,
So not only I couldn't even read my own handwriting, much less write them down.
Tried to write in script. That's the worst now. You can't.
Yeah. And so I had all these notes, like I remember I was on my first exam. I had all these notes for my first exam, and I'm trying to study off my notes, and I'm like, man, I can't
that you can't read.
I can't read my notes. Then I realized, man, I just got to take screenshots.
Right, there you go.
That's it. Screenshots, and then using my DJ skills, right? Because as DJs, we have like our DJ crates, little folders that we make to put our music in.
Yep.
I did the same thing. I had my little folders of notes, and I just threw the notes in there, and then I just opened it up like I was opening up Serato.
Beat mixed your notes away.
Yeah, basically. So I learned a lot of things over this pandemic. I learned a lot of skills. We all did. We all had to learn, like what you talked about, learning about Zoom. We had to learn we had to learn a lot of new technology in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I'm kind of grateful for. But going back.
And then the DJs then helping each other out with it too, which is another thing, of leaning on each other with, hey, what do I have to buy? How do I use it? Which was something we all did a lot, was help each other out, which was cool.
But again, that's an amazing thing, because when I was, DJing, many years ago in clubs and stuff, DJs wouldn't help for anything. They'd stab you in the back for a gig or whatever it was. But this pandemic, it seems to have put everyone in the same place, and everyone's helping each other out. You see on Twitch the whole raid train thing going on, and people sending people there, and there's little communities built in with that. And I think it's a great thing. I think it can only help everybody, not just lift spirits for now, but going forward. Working together is always better than working against.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the pandemic kind of humbled a lot of people. It humbled a lot of not just DJs. I mean, even like with artists too, as we see on our Zoom calls. I mean, I think we've been very fortunate that a lot of the artists that have been coming on our Zoom calls, they probably would have been there for us even before pandemic. But I think the pandemic actually. I'm being nice, right? But you see what I'm saying? It's like the pandemic kind of humbled them, right?
Sure.
Because now, I mean, they're in the same boat as we are.
Right. They can't go out and do gigs, and they can't, play, and they need their records played at radio. So they need to, they can't travel to go to radio stations to see everybody. So if we can throw, all these people into one room and you can do it one shot, they're more apt to do it. I remember years ago when some of the big name DJs wouldn't even do a drop for anybody, let alone come on a call and talk to people. And so that's definitely changed a lot.
I think a lot of the artists also wanted to learn how the hell to use Zoom and OBS too. So they're like, let's jump on. These guys know how to do it, so we'll learn from them.
Right.
and pretend like we're here for them. No, I'm just kidding. No, it is something. Again, with our call, we were worried about how their DJs were feeling. And I never, for a second, really, John, in my own naiveness, thought, wow, I wonder how the artists are feeling as well during this. Because we've seen the human side of a lot of artists who we never get to see a personal side to. And it's been interesting with Tuesday night getting together with other mix show DJs and how we got from, I don't even know how we just got artists to start coming on, and I think that was just something that, hey, let's build an entertainment side of this too. Let's talk about what's the shit side of things right now, and then let's get together as a community and maybe get some entertainment, have a little bit of time to enjoy something from an artist or talk about music a little bit. I think we inched that in as we started calming down a little bit as we moved later into the pandemic, when we started figuring out, okay, we got the unemployment going. Okay, we've figured out PPP loans. Okay, we figured out, now let's get together and still strengthen each other, and then maybe bring some artists on who want to talk or share some music. I think that's how that started.
Yeah, Carrie Vance had been telling people about the call, and a lot of labels see what we're doing because everyone tends to post about the call. Yeah. So he was talking to some artists, and he thought it would be a great idea. He approached me about it, and I said, yeah, the guys would love that, Mm-hmm. And so, we started putting artists on. He's been getting them weekly, sometimes more than we can handle on a call, but it's like, it's been a fun, part of what was going on. And I think that it's brought our community something that they wouldn't have had access to before. Because unless you're at the radio station at the time an artist rolls through, you're never going to meet them.
Absolutely.
And we've had artists on there, like Afrojack or Steve Aoki or Ali Brooke or Cruella. There's been so many of them, and it's been fun for those guys to meet them. And what's interesting to me is they're reaching out and saying, hey, why don't you guys come play, Xbox with us? And here's my tag, my game tag. And come on, no one's getting that information before this, So yeah, it's definitely added, and almost kind of kept the call interesting more, because as we've gone through this, we've become used to, this guy's out of work, this guy, he knows what to do now. And like, we could talk about what happened that week, but everyone knows nothing's changed. Yeah. We're in the same, we're in that Groundhog's Day. We wake up, do the same thing. It's over and over and over again. And thank God there's a light at the end of the tunnel, for next year, but it's, the entertainment part of it, the artist part, getting to know them personally. Afrojack's list of, 30 books that we should be reading. Yeah, that was insane. Like, no one, I don't think magazines got that off of them, So, you can find out. I posted it, in several places online for people to read, all motivational books. That's what he was doing with his time. So, yeah, no, it's definitely been fun. So,
learning about Tiesto's, and Afrojack and Cascade last week. It's been
yeah, Cyndi
interesting.
Lauper.
Yeah, Cyndi Lauper coming on. It's interesting to see. I mean, we're all going through the same thing.
Yeah,
Artists,
no matter what level it
DJ,
is.
whatever you're doing, it's interesting to see how people are coping and take strength from that. I guess is what I'm trying to say. We're okay. Hey, here's somebody I'm a huge fan of. How are you coping? How are you coping? Like, Stevie Aoki was the interesting one because I think we all figured he was the one who's probably had the most mileage around this globe.
Right, yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
interesting to ask him, how are you coping with literally not being in the air 100 days out of the year? And he was like, I built a compound for this, in Las Vegas, and it literally, I don't need anything but Uber Eats and whatever. And he was right. He literally built himself a compound. And then hearing Tiesto say the experience of doing a drive-in pop-up gig is biblical. And so that's giving us a little light to say, okay, you're actually out there doing something that we're not doing right now. What are you seeing from what you're seeing from your fans or the crowd? And literally that probably really lit me up more than anything in the last couple of weeks. As you said, John, with the vaccine being starting to come out, I here in Pittsburgh, they had every single video camera on all 3 networks on a UPS truck down at Children's Hospital as it made its turn. They probably made it do 4 times, so they had a better shot, like it was, Sunday Night Football, as it came in with the first round of vaccines. And that was biblical.
Yeah.
It was like, it's here. It's a physical thing. It's right down the street from my house. That's where it's at. And to hear artists who are doing the drive-in, like I said, with Cascade, saying TJ, or not to me specifically, but saying, hey, it's biblical. It's like these people never heard music before. And that's what I wanted to hear. I was like, what's it going to be like when we go back? Is it going to be people who want to go back into a club, go back onto a dance floor? How are they going to treat each other? Do they remember how to still be social? What do you say when I cracked the mic the first time? Hey, what's everyone up to? Like, what do you do?
Where you been?
Where you been? So what's everyone been up to? That was something that we would not have gotten if we didn't have these artists of this caliber, or any artist, come on and say, hey, and these artists took it upon themselves. When we talked to Marcus Schultz, who took that mobile, or that camper RV across the country.
Yeah.
He put together an album and then shot his video at every, like, hey, you must see, every place on Route 66 or wherever that he went, a landmark across the country. I mean, these are things that it's unbelievable. There's a DJ here in Pittsburgh. I know a friend of mine, a DJ Nugget, who did the same thing. He owns the Gold Mark here. He's a DJ who owns his own bar, who said, hey, we're shut down. Now we're shut down, obviously, for the 3rd time right now currently. But say, hey, we're going to shut down. But you know what I'm going to do? Me and my wife are going to get and travel across the country and do something we'll never probably be able to do again. And did the same kind of thing. So I've taken strength in watching my friends and colleagues and seeing what they've done with their time. And they're right. Man, there was we're never going to get this kind of a time, I think, back in our lives. Not that we wanted this particular time to happen, but yeah, to see how people have turned this into a lot of good positives. And I was talking to my boss at the radio station the other day, and I'm going to go back on the air on New Year's Eve. I'm filling in for our morning show. Just found this out the other day. And he's like, TJ, we strive to be an oasis of positivity on this radio station, which we always want to be. There's no reason to harp on what's going on now and what's gone on in the past. And he's absolutely right. It's time to turn the page as much as we can. The vaccines are here, and I'm trying to mentally get to what he's saying. I can pull it off as an actor, but mentally, to be honest with myself, are we this close? How close are we to turn the page? And when we do turn that page, I think the next support will be, this call will evolve into, okay, as we baby step our way out the door with our rigs in hand, what's the reaction like? So we can talk to each other. Rich hasn't closed. So, we talked to Rich a little bit about what it's like, in Houston and our friends and colleagues in Florida. And again, having a little pulse on every little major city in America right now. We've got friends in California, we got friends in Oregon, we got friends in Washington State, all over the country. and seeing what it's like. So that'll be interesting as we start opening back up again, John, and getting those reactions. And then as artists start to ramp back up, we might be out the door first as club DJs, and then that trickled down when it'll be safe for artists to start going out, then getting entertainment back employed, and rigging back employed, and stages and venues back open. Like, man, I mean, we're losing venues here left and right in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And just everywhere. I mean, it's so heartbreaking. It's so sad. It's, when we went down into the shutdown last Friday in Pennsylvania, knowing that DJs in the service industry was not going to make money the last 3 weeks of the busiest time of the year to be employed. It's like, it's heartbreaking. It's just, and I'm part of that, and it's like, we need, this vaccine, like you said, that light at the end of the tunnel is much needed. Now, how do we proceed, I guess, is the next question. How do we proceed out of this as being in the entertainment industry?
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Scotty B, Miller Lite DJ, thanks for the cheer 100. I don't know what any of that means yet, but thank you.
He just threw some bits at you.
The biddies.
The biddies.
Very cool. Thanks, Scotty. Rich, you've been in and out of the clubs, and so have you, TJ, since this has evolved. What did it feel like walking into the club that first time, when they were like, all right, come back to work, I mean, was there...
No, we've had many talks about that, huh,
Rich? super caution? Was there like, because we know, I'll be honest, I can probably say at least 75% of the DJs that I know that went back have gotten COVID. It's just been an insane amount of number. And we've lost one. DJ Saad, who actually was part of our group, passed away from it.
Yeah.
It has to be a frightening thing to go in there dealing with that. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, for myself, when I got the call to go back, it was Memorial Day weekend, and the club that I worked at, Clay Houston, we're like probably the best club in Texas at the time, and I knew it was going to be a big weekend, so I took extra precautions. I had a K95 mask. I had a cloth mask over the K95 mask. Because I just didn't want to look like I wanted just a black covering, but I wanted the protection that a K95 mask was going to give me. And then I had my little I guess cleaning kit that I brought with me. I literally had rubber gloves. I wiped down all of the DJ equipment, sanitary wipes, hand sanitizer, and fortunately the DJ booth where I'm at, was pretty separated from the people, so I was practicing social distancing, practicing all the safety protocols and the guidelines. But despite that, you're still in an enclosed area with, even at 25% capacity, you're still looking at 200-300 people in an enclosed environment. So the anxiety was through the roof for me in the beginning.
Yep.
Right.
And it was not, it wasn't easy DJing that first gig. And like I said earlier too, the people too, they were there, but
they weren't there.
They weren't there.
It's like a wedding. They don't want to be the first ones on the dance floor.
Exactly.
It's like,
That's the thing. Is they didn't want to be and see, that was also too, we didn't have tables on the dance floor yet. So we actually had a dance floor.
Yeah,
we had our sections. And then I also, the funny thing, well, not the funny thing, but I was also live streaming from the club, which, of course, the media, the local media, we had this pool party during the day, which I was not the DJ of, and it was an outdoor event. So technically, being an outdoor event, you don't have restrictions on how many people could be outside, but
right.
you have to maintain the 6 feet social distancing, which of course people don't when they're drinking outside.
It's also impossible on a dance floor, of any sort.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the pool party.
The pool party.
So
okay.
The pool party that was during the day, that got national news because it was it was packed, obviously. But then I live streamed that night in the club, which we didn't have those same numbers. Like it was literally, the venue could hold like 1,000 people, but there was 200 people there. But you can't tell people not to stay 6 feet away from each other. So, 200 people ends up looking like 200 people dancing, right?
Right.
So my live stream was actually a part of the media piece that the Houston Chronicle put out the next day. They were showing video footage of the pool party during the day, and then they were showing my footage from the nighttime, and that wasn't a fun thing to be a part of.
Don't forget how you got made the mayor's wall of shame too.
Well, no, I didn't.
Well, not you, the club, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was our sister club that made
That's
the
it. Yeah,
mayor's,
that's it.
that
That's
made
it,
the
yeah.
mayor's wall of shame list. I mean, but yeah, it was not fun in the beginning, and then over time, I've had to adjust to it. But then at some point, it always goes through your mind. Is it really worth risking your health, your family's health,
Possibly your life.
and possibly your life?
Yeah.
But what do? It was a constant battle of like, okay, you want to be safe, you want to do the right thing, but then you also need to support your family.
Yeah.
You also need to,
Pay bills.
pay bills,
Pay
because
bills.
those bills aren't paying themselves.
Nope.
And so that's always been like the constant struggle. But now,
And the also thing we talked about with that too is losing your job to somebody else and not knowing if you would get it back. Was something we discussed too about that part, and it's always in the back of your head. Am I replaceable? That way if I don't do this, which was a big scare.
Right.
So
which actually happened to a lot of people.
yeah,
A lot of DJs lost gigs to other DJs because they wouldn't go back to work, and there was a line of 10 others ready to jump in.
Yeah. Always
absolutely.
is.
Yeah, it half the price. So yeah.
Yeah. TJ, what was your experience? Because I think you went back for a couple weeks, right?
No, my last club experience was the Saturday of in Pittsburgh. The St. Patrick's Day parade is one of the biggest across the country. I mean, it's like third or fourth, and it's probably the second or largest money day for service industry in this town. They canceled the parade. I remember that they canceled the parade 24 hours before that Saturday, but we went in the club that day. And I mean, that's a day where DJs are working from, I think, 6 a.m. till 2 a.m. or 7 a.m. or something like that. We bring in 5 or 6 DJs in the club and do it, 3 or 4 hours at a time.
Right.
The crowd, it just, you knew something was coming. You could feel like you knew this was it. This was the last one. And that experience was, I guess it was interesting that I didn't really think about it that way. That this is gonna be my last hosting gig for the foreseeable future, or is it the last one ever? It was one of those things where I look back even today. I was like, is that part of my career done? And that was it. Like that was the wrap on that. I don't know. I went back to do the casino gigs.
Yeah,
which was a little bit different. The casino that I work at here, we just had built a DJ booth on the gaming floor that was social distance already. It had walls, it had plexiglass. It was. I think when they built it, I was like, this is really cool. There's no real way to get in and get out of this thing, and it was just that way when it was built before even the pandemic. I thought it was safe that way, and I went back in. Obviously, at the casino, the temperature checks are at the door. Everyone's got to wear a mask. They changed the air filtration system and put a bunch of money in that. And then again, when I walked in, I can't be approached. And that was one thing, one like Rich's DJ booth is up on a second level, or was, where he wasn't up in the crowd, and a lot of these clubs, you don't have that option. You're right there on the stage
on the
with
floor.
people dancing with you and passing the bottles and that kind of thing. And where the casino gig is a little bit different structured than a club setting. And even that, it was like we went back and then we were there for a couple weeks and then it's shut down again. And then I did a couple outdoor gigs where I was in a parking lot, and not anywhere near anybody, but I had the same mental war that I had that Rich is talking about. And the discussion, it wasn't just about what I thought, it was about what did my family think. Hey, this isn't just a TJ decision now. Now it's a TJ's family. And Rich and I were like, it's not just the Rich's and my parents who are 75 years old each. Right. And then, and that's both of my parents have pre-existing conditions. And that was, I could not live with myself if I did something that stupid that I could have made the right, in my opinion, a right or wrong decision on, brought it home, got sick, and it got my parents sick or something. And that was the leveling part for me. So, it was like, Mom, Dad, and I'm not going to see you, even though you're 6 miles from my house. They might as well be in Las Vegas where they lived, and then right. They came back to Pittsburgh. But we all had the discussion. And then I was like, I have to work. I have to find a way. And then I found other employment, John. I mean, that was the other thing.
Yes.
It was.
I was going to ask you about that.
I got a phone call from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I've had a great working relationship with for the past couple of seasons through my radio job, where I would DJ pregame in the FedEx Great Hall, which is an entranceway into Heinz Field. And I got a call from one of the executives who said, "Hey, TJ, we don't need you this year. We're not going to have fans. We've kind of come to the conclusion it's not. We have a feeling it's not going to happen all year," which has changed a little bit, but still not to the capacity that was worth hyping a DJ, to come in.
Well, I remember you were going to do preseason with nobody in the stadium. They wanted you to be there,
they wanted
a little weird.
They wanted to do the preseason. They wanted to do a full blown show and not change, which I admired that part. They didn't want to flip the script on it. Hey, we're going to make this as life as possible. I guess for the ambiance, maybe. You heard that on the field. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it was they had in mind for what they wanted to do, but I got that unfortunate phone call, and it was in probably June. Hey, TJ, we don't need you, but there was a but. But there is this possibility for a gig for you 2 months from now. We'll call you back. Click. It was like cliffhanger, right? So I turned around and I was like, supposedly there's a job, and then 60 days was almost 60 days or to the day. Hey, remember that? Yeah, I remember that day. It was 59 days, 16 hours, and 12 minutes ago. You told me there might be this gig coming up. It was the NFL is kicking around, or they have a new project they're going to use for football games. And I was, at the time, I didn't think they were going to play football, so I was right. impressed. And they've developed a crowd noise project for network. And would you be interested in the job? And I was like, hell yeah, I'd be interested in the job. I mean, I don't care what it is right now. It's what is the job? And it was, we need a operator, and it was a fan audio technician was the actual position. Every stadium in the NFL would have its own fan audio technician who would sound design every play for their home team. And you're going to be on the short list for this position, and we're hiring. They're hiring it tomorrow. Do you need to go on and apply? And I was like, wow, I didn't even think there would be. Imagine this, John. This is a position that only became about because of the pandemic.
Right.
So, and it was a position in broadcasting. It was a position where they must have sat around and said, how do we hire for this job? And let's go to the clubs and ask the clubs to refer a person that they must believe in or feel that could do this position. And so within a matter of 24 hours, I had a welcome to the NFL letter. I was working for the National Football League, and I couldn't believe it.
Being tested 3 times a day.
Being tested, and again, so it was. Then I really saw, the COVID initiatives and how
right.
the money spent on making sure we were all safe, and I took on a new position. I've never done anything in television before. I've been in radio for my entire career, and it was and still is. I work this coming weekend. It'll be the last home game. It was amazing, to find employment during pandemic in the same field, so to speak. operating fake crowd noise for all of us to experience. And it's interesting, and I'm very thankful for the Steelers for referring me, and I'm very thankful that the NFL gave me something to get my mind off of everything else for a while. But again, then that's coming to a close, so it's like, it's not something like that's been creeping in my mind. And then we actually have a Zoom call once a week with a bunch of the same operators, and it's very parallels what we do here. And the operators talk to each other about what's going on in their clubs. And, we had the operator from Atlanta said, "Hey, and my season's over," and you could just see the depression in this person's face. Right, and I knew exactly what it was. We're all a bunch of guys. These guys are roadies or sound designers or A1s or A2s. One guy that works with us does front of house for Ellen, and it was interesting to see what all these guys do. One was set up for, the national championship. It's interesting to see everyone's pretty much, in the same field. Sure. But, the Zoom calls have helped like that too. And the support structure of, we're all doing something that was brand new on an island. It was the parallels were just incredible in that phase. But yeah, it was something that, I only got this position because of the pandemic, and but I was very grateful for that. So
that's something great that came out of it for sure.
Yeah.
And Rich, you started a new job too, right?
Yes. So I was fortunate that a new venue is actually opening up here in Houston. It's an outdoor patio live music venue called Rise Rooftop, and our opening will be New Year's Eve. It's a 13,000 square foot outdoor patio rooftop, but has a retractable roof. We're the largest retractable roof that's not a sports stadium. So we won't be able, we won't have to worry about any kind of weather. If it's, rain, or even if it's like too muggy, we could just close the roof up, or open the roof up for other things. Like, for instance, like New Year's Eve, we plan on doing, instead of a ball drop, we're going to have a disco ball go up through the roof.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, cool. We're doing a rise up. And so not only am I the director of entertainment that, will be obviously doing shows once things start to open up, but I'm also in charge of their digital content. So I, basically said, we have to also prepare the live music venue, not just for live shows, but, online content. So I'm going to, do a lot of behind the scene video content with artists that we book, even with the staff, and creating a channel for the venue so that people can, for the people that don't want to, say, go to the venue, maybe we'll just live stream the event, so, or we'll have, videos that they can see, post show. But it's been good so far. I've already been working with a lot of different agencies. They're actually starting to open up, their roster again. And obviously a lot of the big name EDM DJs are still not ready to go back, but I would say they're looking at, from what I'm hearing, a lot of these artists are starting to, and it changes daily, but a lot of these artists are starting to look into March, April of coming back out. So we'll see. But we have a show on the 2nd with Lost Kings, which Lost Kings was on our Tuesday Zoom call. So we have them coming. Then we have Paul Oakenfold coming in February. And then we have this other DJ, James Kennedy, who was on the Bravo reality show Vanderpump Rules. Okay. Or he still is on the show, actually. And he's a producer DJ, originally from England. And actually, I did like a Zoom interview with James, and that's going to be content, like I said, for the venue. And that's a good thing, like what we were talking about earlier about how artists are starting to do stuff. Like, that's the thing that I'm going to be asking these artists to do. They probably wouldn't have done this pre-pandemic.
Right.
but now they're open to it because it's in their best interest,
Absolutely.
not just for them to have a good show, but also just to help promote them because they haven't been out for a year.
Right. Those
Re-engage
promotional
with
opportunities have just been slow, so why not?
Yeah.
Yep. Anything to engage the fan base, because the and that's what it's a two-way street here. We got to get, if we're not feeling safe and looking like we feel safe, the fans aren't going to feel, I don't think, and have that kind of comfortability factor. And that's why we're seeing the president or the vice president, on national TV getting the vaccine shot, and why we're seeing artists, and anybody of fame showing, hey, look, it's safe, look, it's safe.
Right.
We got to get, it's to get everyone out feeling like that's time to
I
go.
hit the wrong button.
Yeah.
Intermission time.
Oh, it's still going there? What happened there? See, I told you I don't know what I'm doing. Stop that thing, will you?
We're ready for shows now.
I guess so. I'd like to be able to stop this, but I don't know how. Yeah, I'll hit this one instead. Does that work?
Oh, you got a rim shot. Nice.
So, yeah, I don't know what this thing is doing, so let me just pot it down there. There we go. That should kill it, I think.
It works.
Okay, good. All right, so when do you see, we're coming out of what's been a really depressing time for most people. Music usually reacts to what society is going through. Where I know we talked a little bit about before how a lot of stuff is really moody coming out now and kind of, spacey and airy. Do you see that continuing, or do you see once, summer hits, it's just going to rip open and it's just going to be the club bangers and all that stuff, really kind of ripping into it?
I could tell you this, in the last 2 weeks that I've been working on music, I'm doing all up-tempo music. I'm not doing this vibey stuff right now. Even the track that I was working on last night, I was working on a remix that had a little 80s vibe, but it was up-tempo. It was, 148, and it was, fun. And I think there's a lot of producers and a lot of artists that actually have that kind of music in the can, but they're just waiting to release it, right?
Yeah, the optics just aren't right yet. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and interesting enough, we were talking about lots of documentaries, right?
Yeah.
One of the documentaries that I watched during the pandemic was the Studio 54 documentary, and it talked about how the disco era, when the disco era came about, like societal moods, they were so tired of war, the Vietnam War. They were so tired of all of these different social struggles. They just wanted a party, right? And disco became part of that society. Let's forget about all of these serious problems or whatever, war and social injustice and all of that, and let's just go back to partying. And I think that's what's going to happen in 2021. I think people are, at least what I've seen so far, people are over it.
It looks like a second roaring 20s,
That's what I was going to say. After the last big pandemic, the Roaring 20s came out.
Roaring
people
20s, yeah.
They're just ready. They're just ready to move forward, and I know I'm ready to move forward too, and musically as well. So a lot of the stuff that I'm working on now is up tempo, upbeat, not vibey at all. So
yeah, the track you were working on last night with that 80s vibe was really cool, like that.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. And like I said, I think a lot of artists have that stuff in the can, or they're working on it. And look,
I just thank God for Dua Lipa this year.
That's what I was going to say. Dua Lipa.
I was watching the Saturday Night Live yesterday because I didn't watch it live, and Dua Lipa was the guest with Kristen Wiig, and I turned to Charity on the couch, and I went, "That's the woman that got me through this year." And she's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, that's Dua Lipa, and here's the songs." And I'm like, "That is the one." I think that's her music, and her album was the only uplifting consistency of 2020, in my opinion. Besides Blinding Light, but it was for it in pop. I'm looking at from an overall listener's point of view when it comes to top 40 in our star radio station. That was our lady. That was our artist that we needed to get through 2020. And then, here she's the last host of 2020 on Saturday, musical guest on Saturday Live, and I'm like, it was ironic that they had Dua Lipa on for that. And I found some parallels in that and said that was a good ending for Saturday Night Live for the year, having Dua on.
Right.
And, that's just what I believe. I'm like, her every track that came on the air from her was uplifting. It was fun. It was it was great. It was needed. It was so neat. It was soul. It was music for the soul and food for the soul. So.
Yeah, it's funny because when I saw her on Saturday Night Live, it reminded me of, and I posted this. There was a KT Euphoria a couple of years ago, and so I'm up. They have the elevated stage at Jones Beach on the side, so I'm up there watching. I think it was Shaggy and Sting were performing, and I see this woman dancing behind me, and she's having a great time, and I'm like, she looks like a record rep. I don't know who she is. And so as they're walking down, I said, "Who's that, rep over there?" And someone tells me, "Oh, that was Dua Lipa." I was like, "Okay." I was like, I guess I should have grabbed a picture while I could. Now forget it.
Impossible now.
Yeah, it certainly is, isn't it? So. All right. Well, good. What do you say,
but
Rich?
you know what? I think there's going to be more Dua Lipas. Like, a lot of new artists. I've been seeing, a lot of new artists. I know everybody keeps talking about Twitch and Zoom, but Patreon. I've discovered so many new artists, from Patreon. Just listening to, because artists have been using Patreon to like sell their music,
right?
And so,
and of course TikTok this year, Rich. I mean, it was everyone diving into their phones,
right?
Because they needed something to do, and then the treasures that have come out. I think of Savage Love and Coffee for Your Head and Beanie, and we could go through at least a dozen of tracks that went instant top 40 that we played. That came out of TikTok, and it was like I didn't know anything about TikTok. To be honest with you, I still don't have the app on my phone, but I watched the videos on YouTube, and I was just amazed.
TikTok has definitely become, I guess you could say, the music industry standard now, right?
Yeah.
And when I was interviewing James Kennedy, he actually got commissioned. Well. So he did a remix of Jason Derulo's Conyo, and he uploaded it on TikTok. And somebody from Atlantic saw it, and they reached out to him, and they made it an official remix
that's
off
cool.
of TikTok. And the same thing also, I forgot his name. There was this guy that did a remix to Taylor Swift's Love Story, and he was trying to get it official, which obviously that wasn't going to happen. But
right.
I guess Capitol picked it up, and they got somebody to cover it, and it's out as a release now.
Yeah, I just heard that song.
Yeah,
in the last month.
Yeah, so that came from TikTok. So basically,
oh wow, I didn't know that.
Basically, if you're a DJ producer, like you need to put all your stuff on TikTok, basically, because like,
it's incredible.
Because, it's so weird. This past year, like I've been on TikTok even before it was TikTok, when it was Musical.ly.
Yeah.
But like everyone has been posting some crazy mashups on TikTok. I mean, I've been seeing so many people. Like I saw, I don't know if it's true or not, but there's this one TikToker, young kid, and his mom, like doing mashups on TikTok.
I love it though. I love it.
Yeah, like because like I forgot who it was, but it's like this teenage kid's like, "Hey mom, what if you mix Soldier Boy with Coldplay?" And then she's like, "Okay." And she goes in.
She just does it.
And then she she has the little screenshots of her on like in Ableton, and then
that's funny.
And then mashes them up together, and like. Wow, so I mean, there's been so much creativity has come out of TikTok. I have this kind of love-hate relationship with it, though. I love it, but I hate it too. So, I mean, but it's kind of become like the, I guess, industry norm now, and we got to deal with it.
Yeah, though we got to go where the people are. If they're there, that's where we got to be.
So, unless the TikTok app gets shut down.
Get shut down. Yeah.
I think that's out the window now. I wonder what the next big one is. Could be Patreon. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean,
You know.
or it could be this Clubhouse app, which everyone's talking about. I don't know.
Yeah.
I actually finally figured out what it is, and you know how I describe this Clubhouse app? It's a conference call app because there's no video,
Yeah.
but you hear people talking.
It's like the old
basic-
party lines.
It's
Yeah.
It's like okay, all right.
Technology has taken us right back to what we had
Well,
in
yeah.
'87. Yeah, you know, and
Well, what phones came out, they were really small. Then they got big, and then they got to small
got
again. Now
small
they go
again.
big.
The flip phones came back again, and it's
Yeah. It's we're in a vicious cycle. That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, speaking of vicious cycle, is like I'm veering off here, but you know, we're talking about music, and you know, everything is like 80s and 90s influence.
Yeah.
Same thing with fashion. Like I was with my 13-year-old daughter thrift store shopping with her. She literally wanted to buy an old sweatshirt, like old Mickey Mouse sweatshirt, and it was like $40. Like,
Wow.
$40.
Let me see if I can find one for her in a closet.
Right,
I'll
yeah.
put it down.
Well, it's funny because like all the stuff that people are there are these pop-up thrift stores that are popping up everywhere, right? And I'm looking at it, I'm like, I had that shirt. I know I have that shirt in my closet somewhere, like because it's like mid '90s, you know, like old, like you know,
I
Tommy
wonder-
Hilfiger shirts or whatever.
I wonder how much of this '80s, '90s. Not that it hasn't happened before, but you know, John, we were talking about beginning of the pandemic and people jumping on streaming very early, you know, of course with D-Nice, you know, his stream becoming pretty much the top of the heap, and what he was just playing was feel good jams,
Right.
you know, from every decade. But it was mostly anything that was chicken noodle soup for our soul was being played, and you heard a lot of 80s stuff, you heard a ton of 90s stuff, and then you started seeing a lot of producers put out revamps, refreshes of the 90s and 80s. I mean, I can't believe how many I have now. I'm very thankful for that when it comes to playing the gold records in like a mix show. But
Right.
that dive back into a place in time when we were safe, secure, and we were smiling.
And carefree. Yeah. Happy.
Carefree, and you know, that's kind of bled over on top of fashion and us going nuts for Nintendo classics and whatever else we could find, and like what
Pokemon cards.
Pokemon card. Oh my god, and everything and anything that's going on. And
How much is that collection?
Yeah, how much is it? $30,000 boxes of Pokemon.
Right.
I wonder how much of that continues, or do we reset, put that away, and as we turn this page, does a new something start to take over? And I don't know what it could be. Do we finally start burying the past and start looking for, you know, the way we've been using it as we have as this crutch to get us through 2020? And everyone just hits a refresh button. They're like, I want something new that doesn't remind me of what we did last year. You know, that's kind of like what I'm wondering. Is that going to be the new thing in music? I don't know. You know, one of the things I would always do in radio this week and next week was I go, man, I can't wait till 365 days from now when I talk about the next Blinding Lights. You know, like what that record's going to be. I'd always be like, I can't wait to sit here and tell you blah, blah, blah was the record of 2021. It's that excitement. What is it going to be next year at this particular date? You know, doing those year-end shows is always a lot of fun, you know, recapping why this was the biggest hit, you know, where it was, how the song bubbled up and became what it was. And, you know, I can't imagine at all where it's going to be this time, December 2021. I have no idea. It's, you know what I mean? You know that feeling I'm
but
talking about? Where
that's the beauty of it. Is like
That is.
the three
And
of
we
us are
have that
passionate about music. You know
we
what I
have
mean?
that
So we
feeling
always
every
think
year.
that way. Yeah.
we have that feeling every year. This year's just really different.
Yeah.
We have no idea what trajectory music's going to be 12 months from now. And it's so exciting.
Yeah.
It's
It could be
very exciting.
It could be very good, or we could just go like, how'd that happen? You
Yeah,
know?
or I
We
could be
don't know.
really building up. I'm building up too much expectation because I just feel like there's going to be like this renaissance. It literally could be a renaissance in music. I don't know. I have, like Rich said, when we've talked to how many artists over how many weeks, John, that
Yeah,
talk
over
about
30.
their treasure trove of music that are sitting on their desk, and they were pointing to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, see all this? This is what I haven't released yet.
Right.
And just wondering, like, are they going to Taylor Swift us with 5 albums, within 4 months? So, like,
stuff gets lost in that then, hits get lost.
Dead Mouse told us, remember, he said, I have a record I've been sitting on here
Yeah.
for whatever it was, and said, when we were talking about Pomegranate, when Pomegranate was coming out, and I remember he said to us in the stream, he's like, I've got one here, like, I'm waiting for the time. And there's a lot of guys that said, I got one here, and they're pointing to it, they're
Right.
pointing to another, and you're just like, oh my God, he's physically showing us.
But I wonder if Dead Mouse seems to hold on to a lot of records, because Pomegranate was 2 years old. So
yeah, but you know what I mean? Like,
but yeah, absolutely. What you mean.
Well, I could use an example from anyone, except for Cyndi Lauper, unless she's got something she's holding on to that we haven't know about because she put out a record. But yeah, I can't imagine once those gates open, and that's why I said, what's the biggest record of 2021 is going to be a hell of a reality show to watch. How it formulates over the next 12 months.
And how is radio going to be affected by that? Because
Absolutely.
with all the cutbacks they've had, and how how's that system going to work? A lot of mix show DJs aren't working right now because of they had to cut back everybody.
Yeah,
and so
one
what's
of them,
the chain to get music in to make it trickle down? It's going to be an interesting first half of the year.
Absolutely. You just hit something too. The old ways of doing things are gone,
right,
so to speak. Or the tunnels have gotten narrower, to do it. That's a very good point to bring up. And maybe the relationships that have been built over the last 10 months through not just our Zoom calls, but other Zoom calls. I mean, we've seen, we got to talk about, Tweak Music Tips for, there's just so many things that have come out. That
actually, Kova's the inspiration for me doing
Kova.
this.
Absolutely, I've done Kova, man.
I've done podcasts before, and Rich has been, I think, was my first guest on my first podcast. Like 10 years ago, and so I've done them before, but I never really wanted to do the video thing on YouTube. But he's inspired me and encouraged me that I have connections and I have information that people can use. And so why not put that out to the people? So shout out to the TMT family and Kova and all the good work he does. Absolutely.
I mean, we couldn't not talk about them. We could not bring them up. But yeah, I mean, these are things that, again, there's a lot of negatives, but there's been few positives, and those positives have been very bright positives that we've seen. So
I think in times like this, those positives have to be very bright to cut through all the negativity and all the darkness, So I'm glad to.
And hopefully those relationships will continue on as we strive to add more music, add new music, and the old chains, some of them might have been gone, but maybe some new avenues have opened up, some new abilities to get those. And again, John, there's more avenues to get those, or there's more places to play that music. I think I told you last week I had a phone call from a label who was, because my NFL job, they were asking, someone believed that this was a sports anthem. How do we get this to the National Football League? How do we? Right. So it was different questions because the National Football League is open. There are, and I get it. Hey, try everything.
Opportunities.
Absolutely. There's new opportunities we've seen, and relationships. I didn't know that so-and-so who they were. Now I know who so-and-so is, and I know what they're doing, or I know where they're located. We've learned a lot about each other over, like we said, multiple times over the last 10 months, and that's helped. And of course, we've also strengthened old relationships, which has been kind of cool too.
Yeah.
And seeing a lot of my friends that I've known for a lot of, including you guys, our relationships have strengthened a lot that we didn't have before this. I at least mine has with you guys, that. So
yeah, we'd see each other once a year,
Yeah.
Or twice maybe if we were lucky.
And when we get into a routine of when we discuss things, we talk to each other over email, because we're used to it. The dynamics always work, so you didn't change the dynamic. Yeah. Well, I'm the same way though, I can't have 2-minute phone calls. It's either 2 hours or it's doesn't happen. It's just the way we do it.
Right.
And then you don't, life just doesn't give you 2 hours anymore. But now, in this pandemic has, so that's been interesting.
Yeah.
So hopefully some things continue out of the pandemic, and can be utilized to keep what we're doing rolling on in 2021.
Yeah, 100%. If you want to know about stadium anthems, let's talk to Rich.
That's it, right?
Jock jams for the win.
The 25th anniversary. That's it.
They got you going back in there and doing a new one there, Rich?
Remaster it.
You know, that's
Dolby Atmos, Rich.
You're the first person to actually think that brought that up. That actually would be kind of cool to do
Yeah.
a re-updated version. The songs would be totally different.
Oh God,
That's
yeah.
okay. Got to make it current,
Right.
Current-ish.
Yeah.
Current craft-ish. Yeah.
Right. Cool. Well, this has been a great time with you guys, and I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day and starting this off. And hopefully we'll do a lot more of these and get you guys back on. So, but thank you so much. Cool.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll see you on the Zoom calls on Tuesdays after the holidays.
All right. Happy holidays, guys.
Happy holidays. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.
Take care. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Everybody.
Happy New Year.